I speak today not to explain but to confirm. Yes, I signed it. I, Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso, soldier of the Sahel, son of the revolution, grandson of warriors who never bowed to French bayonets, signed the defense pact with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, not behind closed doors like the corrupt leaders who came before me, not in shame like those who sold our uranium for French nuclear plants while our people lived in darkness, not in weakness like those who begged for crumbs from tables built with African gold, but in full knowledge of what it means, in full understanding of what it costs, in full acceptance of what it demands. They say I signed a pact that could start a war. No, brothers and sisters. I signed a pact because we are already at war. We have been at war since 1960, when they gave us flags and kept our treasuries. We have been at war since they replaced chains with debt and called it independence. We have been at war since they taught us to hate our own skin and worship their image of God. We have been at war since they convinced us that our minerals belong to their companies and our children belong to their factories. I have seen enough of silence. I have seen enough of diplomacy that leads nowhere but deeper into servitude. I have seen enough of African leaders flying to Paris to receive orders like colonial administrators receiving instructions from their masters. I have seen the same bombs dropped on Gaza fall in our minds through media manipulation, through imposed hunger, through calculated poverty designed in Parisian boardrooms and Washington war rooms. I have seen children in Ouagadougou starve while their parents mine gold that ends up in Swiss banks. I have seen our mothers die in childbirth in hospitals that lack basic equipment while our cobalt powers their smartphones. I have seen our young men risk their lives crossing the Mediterranean because foreign corporations have made their homeland uninhabitable. I have seen Israeli companies extract data from our networks, mapping our resources for future exploitation, while their military advisors train the same African armies that oppress their own people. I have seen Western armies play peacekeepers and assassins, maintaining just enough chaos to justify their presence, just enough stability to continue their extraction. I have seen them arm our enemies and then offer to protect us from the very conflicts they created. I have seen the United Nations talk peace while funding death, passing resolutions that condemn genocide while providing the weapons that make it possible. I have seen them debate our humanity while our children disappear into their supply chains. I have seen them preach democracy while supporting every dictator who opens his country's veins for their profit. I have seen French flags flying over African blood for 64 years, fluttering in the wind above mass graves in Chad, Mali, Niger, Central African Republic. I have seen the CFA franc bind our economies to French interests like economic handcuffs designed to look like currency. I have seen our brightest minds drain away to European universities that train them to serve European interests. I have seen enough, so I signed. And when I signed, I was not afraid. I was not uncertain. I was not seeking approval from those who have never approved of our freedom, because I signed with the blood of my people on my hands, the blood of every child who died from preventable diseases, while our pharmaceutical plants exported medicine to Europe, because I signed with the future of my continent in my heart, the future where African children will know their worth not through European validation but through African achievement. Because I signed knowing that our ancestors who died fighting colonialism watch us now, judging whether we have the courage they showed. They will call it symbolic. They will say it means nothing. They will dismiss it as the desperate gesture of an isolated dictator. But let me tell you what it means to every African child who will grow up free. Let me tell you what it means to every Palestinian mother who has lost her son to Israeli bullets. Let me tell you what it means to every Muslim who has watched his holy sites desecrated while the world called it security. It means that Africa will not kneel, not to France, not to America, not to the colonial International Monetary Fund, not to the World Bank that loans us our own resources at interest. It means that we remember what sovereignty actually means, the right to control our borders, our resources, our destiny, our relationships, our future. It means that the Muslim world has remembered itself, not the sanitized, domesticated Islam that begs for Western approval, but the Islam of resistance, of justice, of solidarity with the oppressed. It means that Israel and its Western enablers will no longer act without consequence. It means that genocide will not be sponsored by our silence. It means that occupation will not be legitimized by our compliance. It means that apartheid will not be normalized by our indifference. You ask me if this pact is against Israel. You ask me to soften my language, to speak in diplomatic codes. I will not hide behind the language of cowards. Yes, it is. It is against Israel. It is against everything Israel represents. It is against the idea that European settlers can claim African and Arab land because a European colonial power drew lines on a map. Because Israel has made itself an enemy of justice, MNE, not through its existence, but through its actions. Because Israel has made itself an enemy of peace, MNE, not through its security needs, but through its expansion. Because Israel has made itself an enemy of humanity. Because Israel has turned the suffering of others into a spectacle of domination, broadcasting the murder of children while calling it self-defense. Because Israel has weaponized victimhood, using the memory of European persecution to justify Middle Eastern oppression. Because Israel has corrupted Judaism itself, transforming a religion of righteousness into an ideology of conquest. Because Palestine is the wound of every soul that has ever been occupied. Palestine is the mirror in which every colonized people sees their own struggle. Palestine is the test of whether we truly believe in justice or merely in power. Palestine is the measure of whether we have learned anything from our own suffering under colonial rule. Because every missile they launch into Rafah echoes in the hearts of every African child who has been told his life is expendable. Every home they demolish in Gaza reminds us of the villages they helped destroy in the Congo. Every olive tree they uproot in the West Bank connects to every forest they helped clear for European plantations. Every Palestinian refugee speaks for every African displaced by wars fought with Israeli weapons. They will say I have gone mad. They will call me a radical. They will say I am leading us to doom. They will bring their psychiatrists and analysts to explain my behavior. They will say I have been brainwashed by extremists. They will claim I have lost touch with reality. No. Madness is obeying the same colonial systems for 60 years and expecting different results. Madness is thinking that France will ever see us as equals after centuries of treating us as property. Madness is believing that America wants African democracy when they support every African dictator who serves their interests. Madness is trusting NATO when their bombs destroyed Libya and turned it into a slave market. Madness is trusting sanctions that starve our children while enriching their corporations. Madness is trusting pity from those who created our problems. Madness is accepting that our people should remain poor while sitting on the world's richest mineral deposits. Madness is accepting that our children should remain hungry while we export food to feed their cattle. Madness is accepting that we should remain weak while we provide the resources that make them strong. Madness is accepting that we should remain divided while they unite to exploit us. I do not want pity, the condescending sympathy of those who profit from our suffering. I do not want handouts, the calculated charity designed to keep us dependent. I do not want photo ops, the staged visits of politicians who return home to vote for our continued exploitation. I do not want debt relief, the temporary reprieve that comes with permanent conditions. I do not want development aid, the loans disguised as gifts that build their industries with our labor. I want freedom, the real kind, not the ceremonial kind they gave us in 1960. I want unity, Pan-African unity that makes us too strong to be divided and conquered. I want justice, for every crime committed against our continent since the first slave ship. I want dignity, the kind that comes from controlling our own destiny. And I want vengeance, not the crude kind that repeats their mistakes, but the sophisticated kind that makes them irrelevant. I want vengeance for every child buried in silence, while the world dines on African minerals. I want vengeance for every mother who died giving birth because our medical supplies went to European hospitals. I want vengeance for every father who died in mines that enriched foreign shareholders. I want vengeance for every student who never learned to read because our education budget went to debt service. I want vengeance for every young person who drowned in the Mediterranean trying to reach the countries that made their homeland uninhabitable. This vengeance will not come through violence. That is their method, not ours. This vengeance will come through success, African success that no longer requires their permission. This vengeance will come through unity, African unity that no longer accepts their divisions. This vengeance will come through development, African development that no longer depends on their capital. This vengeance will come through dignity, African dignity that no longer seeks their validation. You who claim to understand persecution, you who invoke the memory of 6 million murdered, you who built a nation on the promise of never again. How dare you make others suffer what was done to you? How dare you become the oppressor while wearing the mask of the oppressed? How dare you turn the Holocaust into a license for your own ethnic cleansing? You have trained your weapons on the innocent, children whose only crime is being born Palestinian. You have turned your back on peace, rejecting every offer that requires you to respect international law. You have mocked our dead. Celebrating the murder of aid workers, journalists, doctors, teachers, children. You have laughed at our pain, your officials joking about genocide while the world watches. You have called it defense. This systematic destruction of a people, this slow-motion Holocaust. But we remember. We remember because we too have been colonized. We remember because we too have been told that our land belonged to others. We remember because we too have been called terrorists for resisting occupation. We remember because we too have watched our children die while the world called it necessary. You may control the sky with your F-16 seconds bought with American tax dollars. You may control the sea with your navy that blocks medical supplies. You may control the borders with your walls that make Gaza the world's largest prison. But we control the earth beneath our feet, the earth that remembers every drop of innocent blood. You may have missiles, guided by satellites, precision targeted, launched from safe distances. You may have the Iron Dome, defending your settlements while leaving their children defenseless. You may have nuclear weapons, the worst kept secret that no one dares to mention, but we have the weight of history on